Bryce Young has been benched. Only 2 games into the season, and the Panthers have already decided to bench Bryce Young in favor of Andy Dalton, and it's honestly hard to argue that it's the wrong decision. Bryce has been so bad to start the year, and he just looks like a completely broken player. Carolina has already gotten crushed in both games to start the season, and I think it's pretty clear they aren't exactly gunning for a playoff spot. So the biggest focus is 100% on Bryce Young's future, and if the best call is to go ahead and just bench him to save any bit of confidence he does have left, then I think that's exactly what the Panthers have to do. This season has started off about as bad as possible for the Panthers. There wasn't really any expectations coming into the year. They were really just expected to be awful again, and that is 100% the case. Carolina got absolutely killed in week 1 against the Saints, 47-10. It couldn't have gone much worse. The Panthers were definitely expected to not be good, but that was an egregious loss, and you can't even spin it in a good way. Now, with the Saints beating the crap out of the Cowboys too, it does look a little better, but it was still just a terrible start for Dave Canales as the head coach. Bryce Young really struggled, and it looked like he just didn't improve one bit from his rookie year. He went 13 of 30 for 161 yards, and he threw 2 picks. And then after a terrible start on the road, the Panthers got to return home to play the Chargers, and they didn't even manage to score a touchdown and lost 26-3. Bryce ended up going 18 of 26 for only 84 yards and threw an interception. The Panthers offense has looked completely incompetent and just truly horrendous. And that's definitely a big reason why Canales has made the decision to turn to Andy Dalton. On top of that, Dalton is a veteran quarterback. He was a longtime starter for the Bengals. He's been a good backup in the league. You know, he played in week 3 last year when Bryce was out with an ankle injury, and he ended up throwing for 361 yards and 2 touchdowns. So there's already pretty good reason to think he'll perform better in the Panthers offense than Bryce, because he did last season. Bryce started every other game for Carolina last year other than that week 3 matchup. That's 16 games. He completed 59.8% of his passes for 2,877 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. It was a really long season. You know, the Panthers just absolutely sucked. They were by far the worst team in football, and that's why the Bears now have Caleb Williams. Last year, the Panthers literally started 0-7. They finally got a really ugly 15-13 win and beat CJ Stroud, who the Texans did take the pick after Bryce. The only other Panthers win on the season was a just disgusting 9-7 win over the division rival Falcons. It did feel like Young was just playing much better football by the end of the season, and that kind of gave you some hope. You know, he definitely had his best game late against the Packers when he threw for 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. It felt like the tides could be turning. After all, it's not normal for a rookie quarterback to just come out and be good year 1. You know, CJ Stroud is an anomaly. Then, of course, the Panthers went out. They made a great hire in Dave Canales, who had just come off of turning Baker Mayfield into a franchise quarterback for the Buccaneers the season prior, and he helped Geno Smith to a comeback player of the year season before then. Canales was on a roll, and it felt like he was the perfect hire to help a young quarterback who struggled as a rookie, but also had a lot of talent. Clearly, it hasn't helped enough, and now he's made the decision to bench Bryce. Maybe Canales wants to win now, or maybe he wants to save his job, or maybe he just wants to make sure to hold on to any of the remaining confidence left in Bryce Young. The Panthers are now going to get a serious look at what the actual problem is for the offense. If Carolina still absolutely sucks and can't move the ball and are a complete embarrassment, then you have the answer. The team just isn't good, and Bryce has been set up to fail. But if Andy Dalton goes out there and can produce better and actually move the ball downfield, well, there you have it. It's a Bryce Young problem. And the Panthers have essentially traded away a ransom for a bad quarterback who is quickly, if not already, heading down the path of being a major bust. And it feels like he's already right there in the Zach Wilson, or go way back to Jamarcus Russell, in that territory of being a complete bust extremely early in his career. I really don't expect that Bryce is the number one issue, but he definitely is a problem. And it's likely because of the Panthers' complete incompetency trying to build around him and not setting him up to succeed. Let's just take a quick look at some of the Panthers quarterbacks before Bryce Young was drafted. Yeah, you remember the year they had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold? Not to mention they still had DJ Moore still on the roster, but it looked like Baker and Darnold just absolutely sucked, and that seemed fair at the time. They looked horrendous. They combined for 22 touchdowns and 19 interceptions on the Panthers. Well, now they are both starting in the NFL again and are both 2-0 to start the year. Sam Darnold is the Vikings starter. He just led them to a big win over the very good 49ers, and with JJ McCarthy getting hurt, you can bet on him probably being the starter all season. Then there's Baker Mayfield, who isn't just the Buccaneers starter, he's their franchise quarterback and already secured his bag. He's been great. He just played in the playoffs last season. They both look like two good quarterbacks, who, to be fair, were both given up on the team that drafted them too, but also they just look terrible in Carolina, and now that they're free from David Tepper, are back to playing good football. The number one reason the Panthers are absolutely terrible definitely goes back to David Tepper, who has convincingly taken the reins as the worst owner in the NFL. What he's done with the Panthers is just truly awful. Carolina had that long tenure of Ron Rivera and made it to a Super Bowl and were really fun to watch. Tepper ended up buying the team in 2018. Then he hired Matt Rule in 2020, who I do think was a good hire at the time. You know, he did miracle work in college as a coach, and he is again at Nebraska, but he just wasn't a very good NFL coach, but it was worth a shot. Tepper then hired Frank Reich, who didn't have a successful tenure with the Colts, but he did have a lot of success with his quarterbacks, and it made some sense to hire him specifically with a young quarterback coming in with a first overall pick like Bryce Young. Truth be told, I really liked both the Matt Rule hire and the Frank Reich hire. They didn't work out, and the Reich experiment only lasted 11 games, and then he was fired after a 1-10 start. Let's just say Tepper has gotten really used to having an interim head coach. With 3 combined, he's had an interim coach a combined 22 games. That's over a season. That's horrible, and it feels like it's a testament to how bad of an owner he's been. Then you add in how much the Panthers gave up to trade for Bryce Young, only for it to backfire and end up giving the Bears, a team in the same conference, a great prospect like Caleb Williams. Carolina traded away the 9th overall pick, DJ Moore, and other picks all for Young. And of course, the biggest of those other picks was their 2024 first rounder, which ended up being the first overall pick because the Panthers were so bad. And it gave the Bears Caleb Williams at 1. To add insult to injury, of course, the next pick right after Bryce Young and the guy that Frank Reich reportedly wanted at the first overall pick, CJ Stroud, has already turned into an all-world quarterback and started even off as a rookie looking like a legit NFL starter. That really kills any kind of quarterback curve there would have been for Bryce. When you look around at how Bryce has struggled, a lot of it comes back to just how bad the team is around him, I think. He wasn't given an offensive line that can actually help him develop, and he doesn't have any good weapons either. Just look around at the roster and you'll realize the Panthers aren't suited for anyone to be successful. While CJ Stroud already has an incredible trio of receivers, Bryce Young's number one target is Deontay Johnson, who was in the midst of falling off in Pittsburgh before he got traded to Carolina, and he might have even been a big help last year. Then it's a washed Adam Thielen and a young Jonathan Mingo, and the Panthers did just draft Xavier Leggett in the first round, but he's still so young. And the top running back is Chuba Hubbard. I mean, this is just not a good football team, and it's no wonder Bryce Young hasn't been good. You have to have a solid foundation to help a rookie quarterback build up and develop. That's the number one thing that helps a rookie quarterback, and the Panthers don't have that. He was doomed from the start in Carolina, and he's probably already a bust. And the worst part is it's not really his fault. Honestly, I think you can just blame David Tepper.